In the eyes of women, two forces are at work. The first is the will to attract, the second is the will to control what is attracted. Friedrich Nietzsche. You've been lied to your entire life. The romantic fairy tales, the Hollywood movies, the advice from well-meaning friends, all of it constructed to hide a fundamental truth about feminine attraction that few men ever discover. What if I told you that Nietzsche, one of history's most penetrating philosophical minds, had already uncovered this deception over a century ago? Today, I'm going to reveal the harsh insights that Nietzsche developed about the manipulative nature of feminine attraction. Insights that the modern world has desperately tried to suppress and hide from you. This isn't comfortable knowledge. It's not what you want to hear, but it is what you need to know. While society tells you that attraction is about compatibility, kindness, and mutual respect, Nietzsche saw through this comforting illusion. He recognized that beneath the surface lies a sophisticated game of power, manipulation, and control that few men ever learn to navigate successfully. All women are fine actresses, Nietzsche once observed, not as an insult, but as a recognition of a fundamental strategy for survival and advancement that evolved over thousands of years. The masks we see are rarely the reality beneath. You've likely experienced this disconnect yourself. The confusion when a woman's words don't match her actions, when stated preferences contradict actual choices, when the rules seem to change without warning. These aren't random contradictions. They're systematic patterns that Nietzsche identified through his uncompromising analysis of human nature. What makes Nietzsche's insight so valuable is that he refused to moralize. He didn't condemn these dynamics as good or evil. He simply exposed them for what they are. Manifestations of the will to power that drives all human interaction. Make no mistake, understanding these dynamics won't make you hate women. Quite the opposite. It will finally allow you to engage with them honestly, without the frustration and resentment that comes from being manipulated without your knowledge or consent. Are you ready to take this journey? Because once you see the truth that Nietzsche uncovered, there's no going back to comfortable illusions. The red pill, as they say, dissolves the pleasant dream, but awakens you to reality. And the first reality we must confront is this: attraction isn't what you've been told it is. It's not about your kindness, your compliance, or how well you follow society's script for good men. It's something far more primal, far more strategic, and far more calculated than most are willing to admit. What you're about to learn goes deeper than most men ever discover. The manipulation in feminine attraction isn't merely about occasional deception. It's a fundamental operating system, one that Nietzsche recognized as essential to the feminine strategy in the eternal dance between the sexes. Everything in woman is a riddle, Nietzsche wrote in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, and everything in woman hath one solution. That is pregnancy. While this might sound reductive to modern ears, Nietzsche wasn't speaking merely of biological reproduction, but of the deeper psychological drives that shape feminine behavior in the realm of attraction. He understood that behind the veil of social norms lies an ancient evolutionary strategy. The first layer of deception is what Nietzsche called dissimulation, the art of concealing one's true nature and intentions. In today's dating market, this manifests as the gap between what women say they want and what actually triggers their attraction. Have you noticed how often nice guys are praised but passed over? How the stated desire for kindness and respect mysteriously coexists with attraction to men who demonstrate indifference or even mild disdain. This isn't hypocrisy, it's strategy. A strategy that Nietzsche recognized as serving a vital evolutionary function. Testing for genetic fitness through what we now call shit tests or fitness tests. Consider what happens when you compliment a beautiful woman too eagerly. The value of your attention immediately plummets. Nietzsche would recognize this as an expression of the will to power. By showing too much interest, you position yourself as less powerful in the exchange, triggering an instinctive devaluation of your worth as a potential partner. When a woman has scholarly inclinations, Nietzsche observed, there is usually something wrong with her sexuality. Behind this provocative statement lies a deeper insight. The feminine instinct recognizes that true power in attraction doesn't come from logic or reason, but from the manipulation of emotion and perception. The second veil is what Nietzsche called the spirit of revenge against masculine strength. Rather than competing directly with physical power, feminine strategy evolved to redirect and harness that power through subtler means. The modern manifestation? The weaponization of vulnerability, the strategic display of weakness to trigger protective instincts while simultaneously establishing moral leverage. Have you ever been in an argument where suddenly the focus shifts from the issue at hand to how your tone or approach is making her feel? This is precisely the redirection of power that Nietzsche identified, a transformation of the physical dominance hierarchy into a moral one where different rules apply. But here's where it gets even deeper, and where Nietzsche's insight becomes truly uncomfortable for the modern mind. These strategies aren't conscious deceptions. They operate at an instinctual level, beyond conscious awareness. As Nietzsche put it, it is not the lie that passes through the mind, but the lie that sinks down into it and settles in it, that is the troublesome. The women employing these strategies aren't villains. They're simply playing their part in an ancient game that evolution has optimized over countless generations. And as we progress deeper into this analysis, you'll see that the most profound manipulations are the ones neither party fully recognizes. What comes next will challenge everything you think you know about attraction, desire, and the power dynamics between men and women. Because the third veil is the most insidious of all, and it explains why so many men find themselves trapped in cycles of frustration despite their best efforts to understand women. Nietzsche's most profound insight, one that illuminates the entire landscape of feminine attraction, is his concept of will to power. Not mere domination, but the fundamental drive to exercise and expand one's influence in the world. Life itself, he wrote, is will to power. And nowhere is this more evident than in the intricate dance of attraction. The harsh truth that few are willing to acknowledge is this: feminine attraction isn't primarily about finding kindness, stability, or even good genetics. It's about securing power through proxy, the ability to influence and direct a man who himself has power. Consider what Nietzsche observed about the female approach to power. Women want to serve, and in that they find their happiness. But the free spirit does not want to be served, and in that he finds his happiness. This apparent contradiction reveals something crucial. The feminine strategy often involves appearing to submit while actually establishing control. In modern dating, this manifests in several unmistakable patterns. The more options a woman perceives herself to have, the less attracted she becomes to men who display neediness. Why? Because neediness signals a lack of power, and aligning with weakness diminishes rather than enhances her own power position. The deliberately inconsistent application of affection and withdrawal, what pickup artists later termed hot and cold behavior, isn't random cruelty but a sophisticated form of operant conditioning. By creating uncertainty, this pattern makes a man invest more attention and emotional energy, effectively training him to value her approval more highly. The tendency to test boundaries isn't just verification of strength, but the establishment of precedent. Each small concession you make sets the stage for larger ones, gradually shifting the power dynamic. As Nietzsche might say, it's not the individual battle, but the war of attrition that matters. Man shall be trained for war, and woman for the recreation of the warrior, Nietzsche wrote. While archaic in its language, this insight captures something essential. The feminine strategy often involves becoming the reward for masculine exertion of power rather than directly competing for power itself. This is why displays of dominance over other men, social status, and unshakable confidence consistently trigger attraction across cultures and throughout history. These aren't arbitrary preferences. their recognition of power that can be harnessed through association and influence. But here's where Nietzsche's insight becomes truly revolutionary. He recognized that women don't want weak men they can dominate directly. The ultimate feminine power move is to captivate and influence a man who himself holds significant power. As he wrote, "The happiness of man is, I will. The happiness of woman is, he wills." The most sophisticated manifestation of this will to power is what modern observers call hypergamy, the instinctive drive to secure the highest value partner available and to continue seeking upgrade opportunities. What makes this strategy particularly effective is its plausible deniability. It operates behind conscious awareness, allowing genuine feeling to coexist with calculated advancement. You've likely witnessed this yourself, the sudden loss of interest when a better prospect appears, the mysterious falling out of love that coincides with a decline in your status or resources, the renewed attraction when you demonstrate value to others. These aren't character flaws, they're features of an evolved system optimized for female reproductive success in uncertain environments. Everything about woman is a puzzle, Nietzsche observed, and everything about woman has one solution: pregnancy. In modern terms, we might rephrase this as, every aspect of feminine attraction strategy has evolved to secure the best possible genetic and resource investment for potential offspring. The darkness deepens when we recognize that this system operates most effectively when neither party fully understands it. The woman who consciously manipulates is less effective than the one who genuinely believes in the narratives that happen to align perfectly with her evolutionary interests. But we've only scratched the surface. The fourth veil conceals an even more uncomfortable truth about the moral framework that surrounds these dynamics. A truth that explains why society works so hard to keep men from understanding the very insights we're exploring. Beyond Good and Evil wasn't just the title of one of Nietzsche's most famous works. It was his declaration that we must look past conventional morality to understand the deeper currents of human behavior. Nowhere is this more essential than in decoding the manipulative aspects of feminine attraction. Society has constructed an elaborate moral framework around attraction, one that systematically disadvantages men who don't understand its true purpose. This framework isn't about fairness or truth. It's about maintaining a specific power arrangement through shame, obligation, and controlled information. Consider how we're taught to think about attraction as something mysterious, uncontrollable, and almost sacred. Chemistry that either exists or doesn't, falling in love as though pushed by an external force. This framing serves a strategic purpose. It obscures the calculated nature of attraction decisions while providing plausible deniability for preference changes. "I don't feel the spark anymore" becomes an unquestionable decree precisely because we've accepted the premise that attraction is beyond rational analysis or choice. Convenient, isn't it? Nietzsche saw through this charade. Morality is just the means to make someone else do what benefits you, he observed. The moral language surrounding attraction, accusations of being shallow, objectifying, or only interested in one thing, functions primarily to restrict male sexual strategy, while leaving feminine strategy unexamined and unrestrained. The next layer of manipulation occurs through what Nietzsche called slave morality, the reframing of weakness as moral virtue and strength as moral failing. In modern dating, this appears as the celebration of male sacrifice, unconditional commitment, and resource provision as being a good man, while denigrating male autonomy, selectivity, and self-interest as toxic masculinity. Have you noticed how quickly a woman's attraction can turn to moral outrage when rejected? How criteria she uses to select men, height, status, resources, are considered preferences, while criteria men use, youth, beauty, femininity, are condemned as shallow or objectifying. This asymmetry is no accident. It's a feature of the system. The most sophisticated manipulation of all is the deliberate confusion between sexual attraction and relationship worthiness. "You'll make someone a wonderful husband someday," becomes the consolation prize for men who bring provider value without triggering genuine desire. The bitter truth? These two male archetypes, the lover who receives desire freely given, and the provider who must exchange resources for access, operate under completely different rule sets. As Nietzsche recognized, the man of noble character must first bring the woman who wants him to the point where she not only loves him, but, for his sake, wants to abandon whatever else she wants. The harsh reality is that genuine desire cannot be negotiated, purchased, or morally extracted. It can only be inspired through the demonstration of power, options, and uncompromising authenticity. This creates what may be the cruelest manipulation of all, convincing good-hearted men that by suppressing their masculine nature and complying with feminine primary social expectations, they will eventually be rewarded with genuine desire. In reality, this compliance often achieves the opposite effect, triggering instinctive disgust rather than attraction. We often refuse to accept an idea merely because the tone of voice in which it has been expressed is unsympathetic to us, wrote Nietzsche. The tone policing and appeal to civility that often appears in discussions of these dynamics isn't coincidental. It's a strategy to neutralize threatening ideas without having to engage with their substance. The final aspect of this manipulation is perhaps the most insidious, convincing men that understanding these dynamics will make them bitter misogynists rather than empowered participants in a game they now comprehend. The shaming language directed at men who discuss female nature openly, incel, misogynist, can't get laid, serves to maintain ignorance through social penalty. Nietzsche would recognize this immediately as a power tactic. The surest way to corrupt a youth is to instruct him to hold in higher esteem those who think alike than those who think differently. By making the exploration of these truths socially dangerous, the system protects itself from scrutiny. But there is a way out of this labyrinth, a path that doesn't lead to bitterness or resignation, but to genuine empowerment and more fulfilling connections with women. The solution lies not in fighting against feminine nature, but in understanding it so thoroughly that you can navigate it with integrity and purpose. Nietzsche's concept of eternal return, the hypothetical idea that we must live our lives over, and over in exactly the same way for eternity, offers us the perfect framework for breaking free from manipulative attraction dynamics. Would you choose to relive endless cycles of frustration, or would you choose a path of authentic power? The solution isn't to become bitter or resentful toward women for these strategies. As Nietzsche would counsel, that's merely another form of slavery, allowing external forces to determine your emotional state. Instead, the path forward involves embracing what he called amor fati, the love of one's fate, even while strategically reshaping that fate. The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe, Nietzsche wrote. Your first step is recognizing that society's dating advice serves the collective, not your individual interests. Breaking free requires a fundamental reorientation toward your own authentic will to power. This begins with the most countercultural action possible in today's environment, developing genuine indifference to outcome, not as a manipulative tactic, but as a philosophical position. When a woman senses that her traditional tools of influence, approval, affection, sexual access, withdrawal, moral shaming, have limited impact on your emotional state, the entire power dynamic shifts. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how, Nietzsche observed. Find purpose beyond women and relationships. The great paradox of attraction is that making it central to your life's meaning diminishes your attractiveness, precisely because it positions women as the arbiters of your value. Next, rebuild your relationship with conflict. "What doesn't kill me makes me stronger" wasn't just a catchy phrase. It was Nietzsche's recognition that growth requires resistance. Learn to welcome fitness tests as opportunities to demonstrate unshakable frame, not as annoyances to be avoided. The key insight. These tests never stop. Not in dating, not in relationships, not in marriages, they merely change form. The man who expects them, welcomes them, and responds to them with amused mastery rather than frustration is demonstrating his fundamental understanding of the game being played. In the true man, there is a child hidden who wants to play. Reclaim the playful, unpredictable aspects of your nature. The excessive seriousness with which many men approach dating betrays their underlying anxiety. Cultivate light-hearted mastery instead, the ability to engage fully without attaching your sense of self to any individual outcome. Perhaps most importantly, learn what Nietzsche called the art of dividing without making enemies. The ability to set boundaries without apology or explanation. Your time, attention, commitment, and resources are valuable precisely because you treat them as valuable. The best weapon against an enemy is another enemy. Understand that competition, not supplication, triggers attraction. The willing provision of unconditional attention and resources without corresponding investment from her side doesn't create appreciation. It creates entitlement and, eventually, contempt. This is where most men make a critical error. They attempt to eliminate competition by becoming the perfect boyfriend or husband, not realizing that the absence of competition itself diminishes their perceived value. Maintaining your options, or at minimum your option value, isn't manipulative. It's simply the male correspondence to female hypergamy. Become who you are. This was Nietzsche's most profound directive, and it applies perfectly to breaking free from manipulative dynamics. The most attractive quality you can develop is authentic self-alignment, where your thoughts, words, and actions all reflect the same uncompromising values. Remember, no price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself. There will be social penalties for refusing to play by the established rules, for seeing through the veils of manipulation. Pay them gladly, knowing that the authentic connections you form will be worth infinitely more than the approval you sacrifice. The final step is perhaps the most difficult. You must learn to genuinely appreciate women for what they are, not what you wish them to be. The bitterness many men feel comes not from female nature itself, but from their persistent investment in comforting illusions about that nature. When you truly understand the game being played, you can engage with it consciously, ethically, and from a position of strength. You can appreciate the evolutionary brilliance of feminine strategy without being controlled by it. You can form connections based on mutual benefit rather than exploitation or deception. This is the ultimate application of Nietzsche's philosophy to attraction. Not to condemn the reality we find, but to see it clearly, embrace it fully, and navigate it masterfully, becoming in the process something greater than we were before. The path ahead isn't easy. It requires constant vigilance against both external manipulation and internal weakness. But for those with the courage to walk it, it leads to something few men ever experience: relationships with women based on genuine desire rather than obligation, manipulation, or exchange. Are you prepared to take the final step? To become what Nietzsche called the Übermensch, the overcomer in your relationships with women. Man is something that shall be overcome, wrote Nietzsche, introducing his concept of the Übermensch, the Superman or Overman who transcends conventional limitations. In no area is this transcendence more necessary than in breaking free from the manipulative cycles of attraction we've examined. The overman in relationships isn't the perpetual player, the bitter MG Tao, or the compliant nice guy. He's the man who has integrated these harsh truths about feminine nature without letting them poison his soul, who can see the game clearly while playing it with integrity, skill, and genuine appreciation for his opponents. This final transformation requires what Nietzsche called a transvaluation of values, the courage to create your own moral framework rather than accepting the one handed to you. Society tells you that female approval should be your measure of success, that commitment is an achievement, that sacrifice proves your worth. The overman recognizes these as external metrics designed to harness his power for others' benefit. Instead, He measures himself by internal standards. Does he act with integrity? Does he speak uncomfortable truths? Does he maintain boundaries? Does he pursue excellence regardless of its effect on his sexual market value? The paradox, of course, is that this internal reference point creates precisely the unshakable frame that triggers genuine attraction. The secret of reaping the greatest fruitfulness and the greatest enjoyment from life is to live dangerously. Take risks in how you engage with women. Be willing to lose specific opportunities rather than compromise. Your authenticity. When you demonstrate that you value your principles above access to any particular woman, you communicate something rare and compelling about your character. The overman understands that true power doesn't come from controlling others, but from achieving such complete self-mastery that external manipulation loses its hold entirely. As Nietzsche put it, he who cannot obey himself will be commanded. This is the final secret. The man who has internalized these truths so completely that he no longer needs to consciously apply them, who embodies rather than performs authentic masculine power, is the man who transcends the manipulation entirely. His relationships with women transform from power struggles into mutual exchanges of value between complementary but different natures. What is done out of love always takes place beyond good and evil. When you can engage with feminine nature without judgment, when you can appreciate its evolutionary brilliance even as you navigate its challenges, you create the possibility for connections of unprecedented depth and authenticity. The ultimate challenge Nietzsche places before us is this: can you love women not despite understanding their nature, but because you understand it? Can you appreciate the sublime effectiveness of strategies evolved over millennia without becoming their victim? Can you play the game with skill and honor rather than resentment or naivety? Few men ever reach this level of understanding and integration. Most remain trapped in cycles of frustration, manipulation, and disappointment, either blind to the dynamics at work or bitter about their existence. You now have the opportunity to be different. He who fights with monsters should look to it that he himself does not become a monster. This warning is essential as you integrate these insights. The goal isn't to manipulate in return, to punish, or to exploit. It's to transcend the entire framework through superior understanding and unshakable self-possession. I challenge you now. Take these insights and test them against your own experience. Observe rather than judge. Apply rather than complain. Transform rather than lament. Become the man who sees clearly, stands firmly, and engages authentically, regardless of the cultural currents pushing against you. Become who you are. This is Nietzsche's final directive to us, and the ultimate solution to the challenges we've explored, not through techniques or tactics, but through ruthless self-examination and courageous self-creation. The manipulative aspects of feminine attraction lose their power, not when you fight against them, but when you understand them so completely that they can no longer surprise or control you, when your response becomes not reactivity, but masterful engagement with the underlying pattern. This is your path forward. Not anger, not surrender, but transcendence. The harsh insights Nietzsche provided aren't a destination. They're the beginning of a journey toward becoming a man who engages with women from a position of authentic power, clear vision, and genuine appreciation. What does not destroy me makes me stronger. Let these truths strengthen rather than embitter you. Let them elevate rather than diminish your view of both yourself and women. This is the ultimate application of Nietzsche's philosophy to the realm of attraction, and the doorway to relationships of unprecedented authenticity, passion, and mutual fulfillment.